How can a relationship be wrong when it feels so right? The psychology of how we can get attracted to the wrong people and not attracted to the right ones. Coming up now on Solving Jewish Singleness with the therapist that gets it, Liz Wallenstein. There's so many times that I've seen people be in agony because they're convinced that there's a certain someone in their life that's for them. And if only that person could see it, how right they are for each other, or that the person feels from them that they care about them or like them, want to be with them, and they just won't commit. And the person is just in so much pain over it and so frustrated and kind of just waiting for it to happen or working really hard to make that connection, and it's just not happening. And they say, it feels so right to me that how can it be wrong? And that's why they feel this persistence. But this is actually a red flag. The first reason why it feels a red flag is you have to ask yourself, why would you want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with you? That is a sign in itself that there's something wrong going on here. Because what makes something a good relationship is how good it feels to be with that person, wanted by that person, that this person sees you for who you are and not for who you're not. That you could be imperfect and this person loves you and wants to be with you anyway. Relationships are supposed to feel good. They're not supposed to feel like a struggle. So the fact that somebody is saying this thing that doesn't feel good, or even if I can't understand why that this person doesn't want me, is already signs that there could be low self-esteem involved. But it's just not a good sign. And the other thing is that in a healthy relationship, you should be evaluating, does this work for me? Is this what I want? In the dynamic that we're discussing right now, it's more of a dynamic of being preoccupied with what's going on for the other person. Why aren't they accepting me? Why aren't they wanting me? What's it going to take? So that also, there's a preoccupation with what's going on for them instead of the security of, is this what I want? Is this working for me? Do I like how I'm being treated? Is also a sign that there's something off here. So let's get more specific. What is this a sign of? It's a sign that your relationship choices are coming from unresolved issues. When your relationship decisions are coming from unresolved issues, it actually could become dangerous to trust your instincts. What happens is people that are actually bad matches for you could feel really right and good, and you could be totally uninterested in somebody who could be good for you, and you could have a very good relationship. So I think something that describes this kind of phenomenon, what makes this happen the best, is something that Freud called the repetition compulsion. So what the repetition compulsion is, we're talking Freud, we're talking psychology, so of course, where do we go? Parents. So even the best parents make mistakes. There is no such thing as the perfect parent. And we as the children are affected by our parents' mistakes. Now, if the parent ever did something to make us feel like we're not enough, if we don't feel enough of their love or their approval or their acceptance, maybe they're critical, maybe a little bit cold, distant. There could be a variety of reasons, but it could develop a compulsion within the child to prove their worth, to essentially prove they're lovable, win their love from somebody, and they can become preoccupied with that. So what happens is that as that person becomes an adult, instead of feeling enough and looking for somebody who treats me as I deserve, they're wrapped up in this compulsion to prove their value and win the approval of somebody else. So subconsciously, the person chooses only people that they can repeat that dynamic with. So somebody who's available and interested and ready to approve of you could just be like, just doesn't pique your interest. But somebody who's, a little bit in, a little bit out, that's somebody who's going to appeal to you more because it awakens that need to prove your worth, show your value, prove that you're lovable. Again, coming from that preoccupied place rather than this secure, confident place of self-esteem. So, how do you repair this issue? So repairing this issue is actually really hard. When I talk about the compulsive nature of this, it could feel like an addiction. A lot of times, unfortunately, a person has to keep getting this wrong and suffering the consequences, like keep pursuing dead ends for relationships that just feel right to them. And again, that right feeling is coming from fulfilling that compulsion of like, okay, this reminds me of this familiar dynamic of this person who's supposed to think the world of me and like fall this short of it, but I can get them there. That preoccupation with getting them there. So that's what gives that person that feeling of rightness in a relationship. That's what they're not going to feel settled until they have that. So somebody who's just available and ready to give them that love and they didn't have to win it, they don't give them that rightness feeling. So like we were saying, it could be, like an addiction, and you have to suffer the consequences enough times till you can really correct it. And sometimes you have to get the help of somebody else, whether that's, a person in your life who could help you see things more objectively and you can trust, or whether that's a therapist, and really kind of borrow their eyes to look at it through, because you just can't trust your own when it comes to this. And have I ever seen couples that kind of got married under these pretenses, that one had to kind of struggle for it, wrestle for it for a while, and finally convince that other person that they're right for each other and end up together and get married? It's rare, but I have seen it. But unfortunately, what I've seen is that the dynamic continued even after marriage. If you have to convince somebody to love you or to want to be with you, you could spend the rest of your life trying to convince them. Like, that's how dangerous this dynamic is. That even if you got commitment out of them, if it wasn't because they really chose this, then it could go on forever. The part of the healing also is you want to put back this dynamic where it belongs. So kind of off of your shoulders and back onto your parents. And that doesn't have to be, actually to them. It never even has to be spoken. Some people might decide that they want to confront their parents about it, but that's actually not necessary and may not even have a benefit. Sometimes this stuff is just for us to work out within ourselves, especially if you had well-meaning parents. Like I said, even the best parents make mistakes. But maybe you have to cry over this. Maybe you have to feel your anger over it and get that anger out to somebody. Maybe you need to journal on it or process it in some way. Talk about the unfairness of it, that this dynamic has affected you so much, now as an adult in your relationship choices. But you want to acknowledge that feeling, kind of process it, but realize that this is a reflection of your parents' mistake that you are now carrying with you, that there's feelings of unworthiness there that may not necessarily, that don't belong there. It's just from a dynamic between you and your parents, and you want to kind of get that self-esteem back, and remind yourself that even being imperfect, because everybody is, you're still worthy, you're still lovable, just the way that you are, and that you don't you don't have to be with some, that's another part of it, is like, realize where you are now and make a choice. You don't have to be with somebody critical. You don't have to be with somebody aloof who it's so hard to get their approval from. Like, you could decide, this doesn't feel good to me, I don't want that. There's other people who I wouldn't necessarily have to have that with. And make that decision to pursue a different feeling, a different reaction from somebody. You want to redefine love in that way, that love shouldn't be a struggle, love shouldn't hurt, that love is supposed to feel good, it's supposed to be affirming, it's supposed to make you feel good about yourself. It's not supposed to put you under pressure that you have to be a certain way or reach a certain level of perfection in order to get approval. And take in just how good it feels to be with someone who can love you even though you're imperfect and doesn't make you work so hard for it. Take in the reward of that feeling. And yeah, just reflecting on that, you have a choice now, that you could either repeat this dynamic, this familiar dynamic, or you can work hard to try and stop this compulsion in its tracks and pursue that different experience. So I hope that was helpful, and good luck choosing somebody who doesn't come from this compulsive nature, but rather comes from, wow, this feels really good. Good luck. If you thought this recording was helpful, please share it on social media so that it gets to more people that it can help. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video. If you're interested in therapy sessions with me online, please contact me through my website or my email or social media. Feel free to send me questions and suggestions of what you'd like to hear me talk about through social media or my website, lizwallensteintherapy.com. Best of luck to you on your journey. I hope to hear good news soon.